Daniel had never been the kind of man who believed life owed him anything. He woke up early every morning, long before the sun touched the sky, and walked into his small workshop behind his house. The place smelled of engine oil, wood, and old metal, the smell of years of honest work. He repaired cars, tractors, and whatever machines people brought to him. His life was simple, steady, and quiet. But quiet did not mean happy. Quiet sometimes meant lonely. For years, Daniel watched other people build families, celebrate anniversaries, and talk about vacations or children's birthdays. He told himself he didn't mind, that he had his work, and that was enough. But deep inside, he longed for someone to talk to at the end of the day. Someone who would ask how his day was. Someone who would sit beside him while he drank his evening tea. He wanted a friend, a partner. Someone who would see him beyond his old clothes and modest home. One evening, after a long day at the workshop, Daniel sat at his kitchen table with a cup of tea growing cold in his hands. The radio hummed in the background as he stared at the quiet room around him. The loneliness felt louder than the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. It was then that a small advertisement on his old computer caught his eye. It was for an international matchmaking agency, something he had always thought was strange, maybe even too desperate. But that night, loneliness pushed him to click on it. The website showed stories of people who had written letters, traveled across countries, and found companionship. Some stories felt like fairy tales, some felt unrealistic. But one thing stood out to Daniel. They were people, just like him. People tired of being alone. People willing to take a chance. He hesitated before signing up, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He didn't think he was impressive. He didn't have much money. He didn't live in a big house. He wasn't someone who could promise a life filled with travel or expensive gifts, but he had honesty, kindness, and a steady job. Maybe that was enough for someone. When he completed his profile, he kept everything plain and real. He described his small town, his simple work, and his quiet nature. After a few days, he received a message from a woman named Lena. She lived in another country and worked at a small clothing store. Her picture showed a gentle smile and bright eyes. Her first message was polite and friendly, and Daniel felt something warm in his chest when he read it. They began writing to each other every few days, sharing stories about their lives. Lena talked about her dreams of starting a small business someday, and wished for a peaceful, secure life. Daniel shared stories of fixing old engines, helping neighbors, and living in a calm town where everyone knew everyone. He admired her courage and her sense of humor. Lena said she liked his kindness and honesty, and how grounded he seemed. Their letters grew longer, filled with small jokes, hopes, and tiny details about daily life that most people would overlook. Weeks turned into months, and their bond grew stronger. Daniel felt like he was finally speaking to someone who saw him, not just the mechanic, not just the quiet man, but someone with feelings, dreams, and flaws. They talked about meeting in person, and after saving money for months, Daniel invited her to visit. When Lena agreed, he felt a thrill he had not felt in years. He cleaned his entire house, fixed the broken fence outside, and even repainted his small living room. He bought new curtains, washed his work clothes twice, and asked his neighbor to help him choose a simple bouquet of flowers. He wanted everything to be welcoming, not fancy, but warm and sincere, just like his letters. The day finally arrived. Daniel stood nervously at the airport, holding the flowers in his slightly shaking hands. People walked by with luggage and excitement, but he could only focus on the arrival gate. When Lena walked out, she looked exactly like her photos, maybe even prettier. Her smile was bright at first, but as her eyes scanned him, the smile slowly faded. She noticed his old jeans, his simple jacket, the slightly worn-out boots he always wore, and then she looked past him, almost as if she was searching for someone else. "Daniel?" she asked, though she already knew. "Yes," he said with a hopeful smile, handing her the flowers. "Welcome. I'm really happy you're here." She accepted the flowers, but her eyes were already unsure. Her expression became more guarded as they walked to his truck. It was dusty from the gravel roads and had a few dents on the side. Daniel opened the passenger door for her. But she paused before getting in, staring at the truck with disbelief. He noticed her hesitation and felt his stomach sink, but he tried to stay positive. The drive to his town was quiet. Lena looked out the window most of the time. And when she did speak, her voice was polite, but distant. Daniel tried to tell her stories about the town, about the lake nearby where families went fishing in the summer, or the bakery that made the best cinnamon rolls. But she only nodded lightly, as if forcing herself to listen. When they reached his home, Daniel hoped her reaction would soften. It was small but clean, with fresh paint, new curtains, and flowers on the table. But Lena's eyes scanned everything with disappointment she tried to hide, but couldn't. "Is this where you live?" she asked gently, though her tone revealed the truth behind her words. "Yes," Daniel said softly. There was a long silence before she spoke again. "You said your life was simple, but I didn't expect this." Daniel didn't know how to respond. His heart felt heavy, but he tried to stay calm. "I'm sorry if it's not what you imagined. I wanted to be honest in my letters." 43. She sat down at the small kitchen table but kept her purse close, as if she wasn't planning to stay long. "You're a good man, Daniel," she said finally. "I can see that. But I came here hoping for a certain kind of future. Stability. Comfort. Something more. I didn't know things would be so limited." The words hit him quietly, like small stones thrown at a window. Not enough to break him, but enough to hurt. "I'm not rich," Daniel admitted softly, "but I work hard. I can build a good life with someone." Lena shook her head. "I don't think I can live like this. I'm sorry. I can't stay. I think I should go home." Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. He had imagined many things for this day. Nervous laughter, warm smiles, maybe even hope. This was not one of them. But he didn't beg her to stay. He simply nodded. "I understand," he said quietly. The next morning, Lena left earlier than planned. Daniel woke up before dawn and drove her to the airport. She thanked him politely, her voice soft but final. He watched her walk away, feeling a mix of sadness, embarrassment, and disappointment. Yet beneath all of that, there was something else, something calm, almost peaceful, because Daniel knew something Lena didn't. Something he never talked about. Not because he wanted to hide it, but because he didn't believe wealth defined a person. He had lived modestly not because he had no choice, but because he preferred it that way. What he owned, the life he had, it was deeper than what Lena had seen. He drove back home in silence. The house felt emptier than before, but the sadness didn't crush him. Instead, it shaped a quiet resolve in his heart. Lena had rejected him for being too poor, but she had walked away without knowing the full truth about the man she left behind. And that truth would soon change everything. Daniel returned to his everyday routine the day after Lena left, but life felt different. The workshop behind his house looked the same, the old tools hanging neatly, the smell of oil in the air, the half-repaired tractor waiting for him, but Daniel felt as if something inside him had shifted. He wasn't angry at Lena. He wasn't even surprised, but he did feel a quiet sadness, the kind that didn't make a noise but stayed with him like a heavy shadow. He tried to distract himself by working on machines, fixing engines, and helping neighbors who needed small repairs. People in town noticed he looked more tired than usual, though he tried to hide it with small smiles. Daniel had always kept his feelings to himself. He believed emotions were like private rooms, meant for a person to sit in alone until they made sense again. But that week, Daniel found himself remembering all the conversations he had shared with Lena. He remembered how she used to laugh at his simple jokes, how she had thanked him for listening to her dreams, how she had said she admired his honesty. All those words felt different now, almost like they belonged to someone else. And yet, he didn't feel bitterness. He only felt a quiet understanding. People often searched for comfort and security, and sometimes they overlooked the things that truly mattered. What Lena never knew, what Daniel had never talked about, was the truth behind his modest life. He wasn't living simply because he was poor. He was living simply because he chose to. Years ago, when Daniel was in his early 20s, his grandfather had passed away, leaving him a large piece of land on the edge of town. It was a peaceful stretch of fields, woods, and a small river that cut through the property like a gentle silver ribbon. His grandfather had loved that land, and Daniel had spent many childhood summers exploring it, climbing trees, fishing, chasing birds, and lying on the grass, staring at the sky. After inheriting it, most people assumed Daniel would sell it. Several real estate agents visited him, eager to buy the land for commercial projects. But Daniel always said no. He couldn't explain why, except that the land felt like a piece of his grandfather's heart. Selling it would have felt like letting go of something precious, and so he kept it quietly, privately, without telling many people. What Daniel didn't know at the time was how valuable the land would become as the town slowly grew. New businesses came in, roads expanded, and the area began attracting developers. The land he had held onto out of love, not strategy, became more valuable every passing year. He was aware that people were curious about it, but he never paid much attention. Daniel had always believed wealth was not measured by the size of a house or the price of clothes. He believed it was found in kindness, honesty, life experience, and how someone treated others. His grandfather had taught him that a person's worth came from what they gave, not what they wore. Daniel had never told Lena about the land because he didn't think it mattered at the time. He wanted someone who liked him for his character, not for what he owned. And truthfully, he didn't know how to talk about it without sounding like he was bragging something he avoided. Still, the memory of Lena's disappointment lingered. Her words about wanting comfort echoed in his mind whenever he walked through his simple home. He wondered what she would have said if she had known the truth. But then he reminded himself that love should never come from money. One quiet morning, about a week after Lena left, Daniel received a letter in the mail. It was from a development company that had been trying to contact him for months. They wanted to build a large distribution facility in the area, and were very interested in purchasing his land. At first, Daniel thought it was similar to the other offers he had received before, maybe a little higher, maybe a little more persistent. But when he opened the letter, his hands froze. The number written inside shocked him. It wasn't just a good offer, it was a life-changing one. More money than he had ever seen. More money than he ever imagined could be connected to him. Daniel sat at his kitchen table for a long time, staring at the paper. He didn't smile. He didn't jump in excitement, and he didn't hurry to call anyone. He only felt a quiet swirl of emotions, surprise, gratitude, and disbelief. But mostly, he felt calm, because he knew that even if he accepted the offer, it wouldn't change who he was. To clear his mind, he decided to take a walk to the land. The sun was warm, the breeze soft, and the field stretched peacefully in front of him. He walked slowly, touching the tall grass with his fingers, remembering childhood days spent running across it. He walked to the riverbank where he had once skipped stones with his grandfather. Everything seemed untouched, gentle, and full of memories. Selling it felt like closing a chapter he had lived his whole life. But as he stood there, he realized his grandfather had never meant for the land to be a burden. It was a gift, something he could use to build a better future. Maybe even to help others. Daniel knew the town needed jobs, needed new opportunities, needed growth, and if selling the land could help the community, then maybe it was the right thing to do. A week later, a representative from the company visited him. The man was polite, dressed in a clean suit, and spoke with a respectful tone. He explained the project plans, the benefits it would bring to the town, and the opportunities it would create. Daniel listened quietly, thinking carefully before responding. The representative expected Daniel to negotiate aggressively, to demand more money, or to argue over every detail. But Daniel surprised him. He wasn't focused on the price. He cared more about how the project would affect the community. He asked for guarantees, promises that local workers would be hired, that the land would be used responsibly, and that the natural areas near the river would be preserved. The representative left impressed by Daniel's calm and thoughtful nature. He later told his company that Daniel was unlike anyone he had ever negotiated with, not driven by money, but by values. After reviewing everything carefully, Daniel agreed to sell the land. The final price was even higher than the original offer, and the contract protected everything he cared about. When the deal was complete, Daniel became a wealthy man, but nothing about him changed. He still woke up early, still worked in his workshop, still helped neighbors, and still bought groceries from the small store down the street. Slowly, he used the money to improve his home, not to make it grand, but to make it comfortable. He bought better tools for his workshop. He created a small fund to help families in town who struggled with repairs or medical bills. People respected him not because he had money now, but because he remained the same kind-hearted man he had always been. One day, while scrolling through his old emails, Daniel saw a new message from a neighbor. They had sent him a link to an article about the new development project. The article showed pictures of Daniel standing with company leaders, shaking hands and smiling politely. The post was shared widely online, and somewhere across the world, Lena saw it too. But Daniel didn't know that yet. He was focused on living life with quiet dignity, not expecting anything from the past to return. He had no idea that his story was about to reach Lena and that her reaction would set the next chapter of his life into motion. The news about Daniel's land being sold traveled through the small town faster than anyone expected. People who had known him for years felt proud of him, and many were happy that someone so humble and hard-working had finally received something good in return for all his quiet kindness. But while the town celebrated, Daniel himself remained calm, almost the same as he had always been. He didn't make any big announcements. He didn't buy fancy things or throw parties. Instead, he continued to wake up early each morning and walk to his workshop. The only difference was that now, his tools were new, his workspace was brighter, and the weight of financial worry was gone. The company that bought his land began preparing for their project almost immediately. Trucks, engineers, and survey teams started visiting the site. The town buzzed with excitement, and many people began applying for the new jobs the project promised to bring. One afternoon, the company invited Daniel to a small gathering at the town hall to thank him for his cooperation and the trust he had placed in their plans. Daniel wasn't used to such events, and he felt slightly nervous as he put on a clean shirt and combed his hair neatly. He didn't like attention, but he felt it would be rude not to attend. When he arrived, people greeted him with warm smiles and pats on the back. Some said things like, "You did the right thing, Daniel," or, "This will help so many families." Daniel nodded politely, always responding with his quiet humility. He wasn't proud in the way most people imagined. Instead, he was grateful that something good could come from a piece of land that held so many childhood memories. The company's representative gave a short speech, thanking Daniel for being reasonable, cooperative, and thoughtful during negotiations. He said Daniel's values had made the project better and more respectful toward the environment. When Daniel was invited to say a few words, he stood up nervously but spoke with calm sincerity. He thanked the town for their support, expressed hope that the project would bring jobs and opportunities, and asked everyone to take care of the land even as it changed. His simple words struck a chord with everyone in the room. There was no bragging, no showing off, just honest gratitude. People admired him even more that day. Over the next few months, Daniel quietly began making small improvements in his own life. He rebuilt his porch, repainted the exterior of his house, and replaced a few old appliances. But he didn't create a luxury home. He created a comfortable one. A home where he could breathe easily and live peacefully. He also formed a small fund to help families who struggled with sudden expenses. The fund wasn't advertised or publicly connected to him. People only heard about it through whispers and quiet conversations at the grocery store or coffee shop. Daniel didn't want attention. He wanted to help in the same quiet way he had always lived. Occasionally, people would knock on his door to thank him for something he had done. Maybe he had repaired their mower for free years ago, or fixed someone's car without charging them much. Now, they wanted to repay him with homemade pies, fresh vegetables, or kind words. Daniel appreciated it all, but he always told them the same thing. "You don't owe me anything." One afternoon, as he was cleaning his workshop, his neighbor, Mrs. Franklin, walked over holding her tablet. "Daniel, you're on the internet again," she said with a smile. Daniel looked surprised. Again? Yes, dear. Someone posted photos of you at the town hall meeting. People are saying wonderful things. Look, she showed him the page. There was a picture of him shaking hands with the company representative, looking slightly shy but earnest. Comments below the photo praised him for his humility. Some said the town was lucky to have him. Others admired how he stayed simple despite his new wealth. Daniel felt a little embarrassed but smiled politely. Online attention meant nothing to him, but he appreciated that people were kind. What he didn't know was that many miles away, in another country, Lena was scrolling through her phone when she suddenly saw his picture. She froze. Her heart seemed to stop for a moment as she stared at the familiar face she had once walked away from. She clicked the article, reading every paragraph carefully. Her eyes widened as she read about the land sale, the project, and how Daniel had negotiated calmly and wisely. She felt a deep ache in her chest, part regret, part surprise, part something she couldn't name. She remembered the man who had met her at the airport with flowers, the man who had spoken softly and with sincerity, the man whose home she had judged too quickly. She had left thinking he had nothing. But now she realized he had far more than she ever understood. Kindness, steadiness, character, and now opportunities she had never imagined. For days, Lena couldn't get Daniel out of her mind. She reread their old emails, looked at his photos, and wondered how she had missed the depth of the man she once knew. Finally, after days of hesitation, she wrote him a message. It was short, polite, and slightly emotional. She apologized for how she had treated him and explained that she had acted out of fear and worry about her future. She said she hoped he was doing well and that she was truly happy for his success. Daniel saw the message when he checked his computer late one evening. He read every word slowly, letting the past drift back like a quiet echo. He didn't feel angry. He didn't feel resentful. He only felt a soft ache, the kind that comes when something once meaningful turns into a memory. He wrote back politely, thanking her for her message and wishing her well. His tone was gentle, respectful, but distant. Lena, noticing the polite distance, felt even more regretful. She wondered if she had lost something valuable forever. Meanwhile, life in Daniel's town continued to move forward. Construction equipment hummed at the edge of the fields where he once played as a child. New families moved into the area. Local businesses prepared for the growth that would soon come. Daniel often walked near the land, just to see the progress. He didn't feel sadness, seeing the fields change. Instead, he felt a sense of completion, a quiet knowledge that his grandfather would have understood the decision, maybe even approved of it. As the project grew, so did the town's admiration for Daniel. To them, he wasn't just the man who sold land. He was the man who shaped their future with kindness and humility. People saw him as a pillar of the community, someone who proved that goodness and honesty still existed. But while the world looked at Daniel with new eyes, he remained the same inside, a man who valued peace over praise, sincerity over show, and purpose over pride. He had no idea that Lena, thousands of miles away, was planning something that would bring their paths together once again. Something that would challenge his heart in ways he never expected. His story was far from over. Lena spent many sleepless nights thinking about Daniel after seeing his photos online. She kept remembering his gentle smile at the airport, the flowers he had bought for her, and the quiet way he had taken her disappointment without anger. At the time, she had been so focused on the kind of life she wanted that she couldn't see the value of the person standing right in front of her. Now, after learning the truth about him, she felt a deep regret that refused to leave her heart. She tried to distract herself. She focused on work, helped her family, and even tried meeting new people. But nothing felt right. Every time she spoke to someone new, part of her mind wandered back to Daniel, his kind words, his thoughtful letters, his steady nature. Eventually, the weight of her regret grew so strong that she made a decision she never thought she would make again. She booked a ticket back to his country. The flight felt longer this time. Lena sat quietly, staring out the window, wondering if she was making a mistake. She didn't know if Daniel would even want to see her. She didn't know if he still felt anything at all. But she knew one thing. She needed to apologize in person, not through a screen. When she arrived in his small town, she felt nervous. Nothing looked like she remembered. There were new roads, new buildings, and a new energy in the air. Yet, the town still held its charm, simple, peaceful, and friendly. She walked into the bakery she remembered from her first visit. The woman behind the counter recognized her immediately. "Oh, you're the lady who visited Daniel a while back, aren't you?" the woman said, her voice warm. Lena's cheeks turned pink. "Yes, I'm here to see him again." The woman's smile softened. "He's at his workshop, dear. Just follow the road toward the small hill. You'll find it." Lena thanked her and walked slowly, her heart beating fast with nerves. She remembered how Daniel's workshop had looked old, dusty, and filled with tools. But when she reached it now, she was surprised. The building looked cleaner and brighter. The roof had been repaired, and the yard was tidier. The sign above the door, with Daniel's Repairs written in simple letters, looked freshly painted. She paused for a moment before knocking. Her hands trembled slightly. Inside, Daniel was finishing a repair on a small engine when he heard the soft knock at the door. He wiped his hands on a clean cloth and opened the door, expecting a customer or a neighbor. But when he saw Lena standing there, his breath caught for a moment. She looked almost the same, maybe a little more serious, maybe a little more thoughtful, but still familiar. "Hello, Daniel," she said, her voice soft but sincere. Daniel didn't speak right away. He wasn't angry, but he was surprised. Finally, he stepped aside politely. "You can come in," he said gently. Lena walked into the workshop, looking around at the tools and the neat shelves. The place felt peaceful, just like the man who worked in it. "I'm sorry to come without telling you," she began carefully. "I know it has been a long time." Daniel nodded. "It has." There was a long pause, filled with quiet, not tension. Lena gathered her courage and continued. "I want to apologize again," she said. "Not just in a message this time. I want to say it to your face. I judged you unfairly. I let fear make decisions for me. And I hurt you because of it." Daniel listened quietly, his expression calm. She took a deep breath before going on. "I didn't understand what kind of person you were. Not then. I didn't see your value, your goodness. I didn't see the life you were offering, a life built on honesty, peace, and heart. And when I saw the news about you, I realized how wrong I had been." Daniel looked at her kindly, not with anger but with a gentle understanding. "You weren't wrong for wanting security," he said softly. "Everyone wants a good life. You had the right to hope for what you felt you needed." Lena felt tears fill her eyes, though she tried to blink them away. "But I didn't see you for who you truly were. And I walked away too quickly." Daniel took a slow breath. He wasn't someone who spoke with strong emotion, but he knew he needed to be honest. "Lena," he said quietly, "when you left, it hurt. But I didn't blame you. You were looking for something you didn't think you could find here. And what happened with the land? That wasn't something I expected. My life changed. But I didn't." She nodded slowly, understanding the meaning behind his words. Then she gathered the courage to say what she had feared the most. "I came here because, I hope, maybe we could try again." Daniel looked at her with warm eyes, the same gentle eyes he had when they first met. But there was something different in them now, something wiser, calmer, stronger. "You're a good person, Lena," he said softly. "And I'm grateful you came back to say this. It means a lot to me." Lena's heart lifted slightly, waiting for the rest. "But," Daniel continued, "I've changed inside, not because of money, but because I learned something about myself. I learned that I want a relationship built on understanding, patience, and acceptance. I want someone who sees me not what I own, not what I can give, but who I truly am." Lena's eyes lowered, sadness spreading across her face. She understood what he was saying, even before he finished speaking. "When you left," he said quietly, "I realized that I can't build a future with someone who only sees half of me. And I think you deserve someone whose heart matches yours. Someone who can give you the life you dream of without making you doubt. A tear rolled down Lena's cheek, and she quickly wiped it away. She wasn't hurt by his words, she was moved by them. Because Daniel wasn't rejecting her with anger or bitterness. He was letting her go with kindness. "I understand," she whispered. Daniel stepped a little closer, his voice gentle. "Thank you for coming back. Thank you for apologizing. It showed me the good in you. I wish you a peaceful life, Lena." "Truly." Lena nodded, swallowing her sadness. "And I wish you happiness. Daniel. You deserve it more than anyone I know." They stood there for a moment, two people connected by a chapter that had closed. But not with pain, with respect. When Lena walked away from his workshop, she felt a soft ache in her heart, mixed with gratitude. She didn't regret coming. She was glad she had faced her mistake, glad she had seen the man Daniel had become. As she reached the end of the road, she turned back once. Daniel stood in the doorway, watching her with a small, peaceful smile. She smiled back, accepting that some stories are meant to teach, not to last. Daniel watched her leave, feeling a gentle calm wash over him. He wasn't sad. He wasn't empty. He felt free. He had closed a chapter with honesty, not anger. And now, he felt ready. Ready to open his heart someday to someone who would see him fully. Later that evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Daniel sat on his porch, sipping his warm tea. He felt a quiet joy inside him. The kind that comes not from wealth, but from clarity and peace. His life had changed, but his heart had stayed the same. And now, he was ready for whatever destiny held next. A future built on sincerity, friendship, and true connection.